And welcome to another episode of South Texas Crossfire. This is attorney Joe Flores reminding you to join us each and every week right here on KTMV with the Lopez family. Special thanks to Don Humberto. He's in the hospital right now, and all our prayers are going out to him. He's the patriarch of our station and all the radio stations, and he's had 50 years of broadcasting, and we are there with him and his family. Special thanks to my good friend Carlos Lopez. You guessed it, the Ted Turner of broadcasting here in South Texas. And I've got a special show today. With me, I've got a city councilman, your city councilman, District 2, John Marez. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Now, John, you're no stranger to TV. You had your own television program. You've been involved in politics in the community a long time. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up.
Sure. Well, you know, I grew up here in Corpus Christi. I'm a lifelong resident. Actually grew up on MacArthur Street over near Crockett Elementary. First 2 years of life, mom and dad got married at a young age, and they lived with my mom's parents for a couple years until mom and dad were able to get a home. And they got a home over on Brentwood near Sam Houston Elementary. They're still living there, and I lived there all my life until I got married. And then after that, I moved to the Lindale neighborhood near Ray High School. And I'm about 5 minutes in either direction from my parents and from my in-laws. So we're a tight family, and we love this city. And so this city's been my focus my entire life, and that's why I've been in public service, just giving to the community, not talking about elected office, but just being a volunteer and just giving my time and my talents like you and many others in our community, because we love Corpus Christi and want this to be a better city. So that's been my whole life, just kind of growing up, all the local schools, still see a lot of the families and friends that I knew and growing up with, and that's been an important part of service also, is knowing the people already in the neighborhoods and in the area of District 2, I think really helps helps make me a better representative for the people.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people have the perception, and we're going to get to that in the second part of our interview, about Corpus not growing. I'm going to ask you some pretty tough questions, just like I have everybody that comes on here. But you really started out, 17 years ago on Access Television, not the big time with KTMV right here, only family-owned station. But you started out, tell us a little bit about why you wanted to come on television in the year 1993, back in the day.
93. Well, in 1991, I first ran for city council, and I came in second place out of 3 candidates. I ran against, people may remember him, Leo
How
Guerrero.
old were you back then?
I was 18.
Wow.
I was 18, so that was in 91. I was a freshman at Del Mar College, and I wanted to get involved in politics. I knew that that was just something that was an interest in me, and I'd always been interested in politics ever since I was a little kid. I've always been fascinated, always went with my parents to the voting booth, even as long as I can remember, even being 4 or 5 years old. So in 91, I ran, came out in second place out of 3 candidates, and in 93, I said, I want to be involved. I want to do something for the community, and I loved politics, and I'd always had an interest in TV, and I said, well, listen, why not do the two? I'd seen people on public access and Time Warner, and it was really in its heyday, I think, especially in the 90s. You know, people were really paying a lot of attention to the public access shows. I said, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to interview candidates, talk to people, stay involved in politics, stay involved with people running for office, but not necessarily run in politics, because I was still young at the time, still going to school, and so I felt my niche in just kind of educating the public, because that's what I've always wanted to do, is make sure the public is educated before they go vote. So that's how I started South Texas Politics back in 93, and I did it for a long time, for about 7 years by myself there at Time Warner at the public access studios. And after a while after that, got a second co-host that came in and really added to the show, and then a third one a few years later. But by that point we were already at KTMV. We came in at 2002 to KTMV, and we've been doing our show ever since then. So I've been doing live Friday night shows even longer than I've been married, even longer than I've even been dating my wife before that. So, almost 18 years of almost every Friday being out there and talking to people live. And that's just my way of giving in. But also, it's a little selfish, because I love being involved in the politics and talking to people who want to make a difference in the community. So that's how I got started, and I can't believe it's been since 93. A lot of changes in my life, but I love it, and I'll continue to do it whether I'm in office or not.
Well, and you mentioned your lovely wife. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Well, my wife, Gina, and I have been married 11 years. We just celebrated 11th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we have 2 children, Bea, who is 7, and Jonathan, who is 4. And Jonathan was actually born 2 elections ago in the middle of an election, so that was a really tough election.
During early voting?
Before early voting, fortunately, but it was still trying because, who wants to go block walking? Who wants to really do any of the forums when you know you have a little newborn at home? But
with barely any sleep,
oh,
anybody who's had
yeah,
kids, man,
it
they
was.
know.
It
They
was
know.
tough. But, we had a great team in place. We had a lot of people that came to our side and worked with us and helped take my place, be the surrogate candidate, if you will, during that election. And that was one of the elections I was really most proud of. But that opponent back then in that election is actually endorsing my candidacy now for re-election. So surprising how you kind of make full circle with the people who were once running against you.
Well, and a lot of people think that it's easy to do a television show, especially live. That's not true at all. I've seen people start a show, start and stutter, and then they just let it go. This is our 7th season on South Texas Crossfire. We're really happy to do that. We've partnered with you guys, kind of 6 to 7 slot, 7 to 8 slot on KTMV, and it's been a really great journey. So what we're going to talk about, as this interview evolves, is your service to the community, but not only in television and interviewing other politicians, but your service as well. So let's roll up our sleeves and let's talk about issues. We know about your background, your family, and I guess for a lot of people, this is their first introduction again to you because you're always being interviewed.
Sure.
I mean, you're always interviewing.
I'm always
rather,
interviewing, right.
and now you're being interviewed.
Right.
So, and I'm glad I had this opportunity. So let's roll up our sleeves and let's talk about it. The growth. People now, we're down on one knee with the economy. Jobs are scarce. The 18 to 26 employment really isn't 10, 15% the unemployment rate. It's actually 30 if you count the underemployed. You got people in California working on furlough. A couple of hundred teachers just got laid off here in town. I mean, these are all factors that may or may not be in the city council's control. But the fact of the matter is when things are really bad, people lay it at your doorstep as far as the city. So how do you wrestle with that? How do you face that when people are saying, John, downtown's not growing. John, we don't have any jobs. What's going on? I mean, and how do you handle that?
Well, talking about downtown, downtown has been a problem for the city for a couple of decades now. It had its heyday and then it just kind of dropped. I think it kind of coincided with the oil bust that we had in the early 80s. And so we had a lot of oil companies and just big headquarters that were here in town move away, and we were never able to recover that. And so we've always tried to be playing catch up downtown. But there's been a lot of things that I've supported. The Downtown Management District, we renewed their contract to be able to tax themselves, tax local property owners and businesses to be able to reinvest. And that's separate from the City Council. Now, we make the final appointments, but they kind of work on their own, and they're not really burdening the taxpayer at all. They do get some money, but they're putting it on the property owners for downtown to reinvest. So that's one of the things they're doing. We have a lot of incentives and abatements that we can offer and provide to a lot of businesses here.
What are
downtown.
abatements? I hate to cut you off,
Sure.
but a lot of people say they throw the word around,
Right.
but a lot of people don't know what abatements mean.
Right. Well, abatement is, basically we're allowing, and it depends on the contract or the term, but a certain amount of time where you're not paying taxes or you're paying a reduced amount of property taxes. And some may say that's not fair, but what it does is it's giving businesses that are starting up the opportunity to put money just in the investment part, to invest in the business and let it get it settled in those fragile first few years of building up the business. And then they're slowly kind of weaned back into paying their part of the property tax here in the community. So that's kind of what is allowed, not only in downtown, but throughout the city and throughout any community. Those are usually offered to kind of incentivize companies coming in. And so that's one of the things that we can offer to downtown businesses and have. But overall, I think you got to provide a positive outlook from the council. I think people look at the city council and say, what kind of city council do we have in place? Are they going to support business? What have their past votes said about the city and moving forward? And I believe I'm a part of a good team right now. I think there's always areas that you can improve, but you should never be satisfied with what you have. I think you should always strive for more. But I believe that this team that we have in place has given people hope in the business community and the development community, and just I'm hoping overall citizens that there is growth. And so I've seen that in downtown. There's more and more businesses that are popping up, more of the older buildings that have not been used in a long time, that have been vacant or underused, are now starting to be used. And these are people, a lot of which don't even ask for any assistance through the city council or from anyone from the state government. They're just saying, you know what, we're going to start it up our own. We're going to put some elbow grease into it. We're going to put a new coat of paint on the walls, and we're going to hang up our open sign and hope that people come in and use the business. And you're seeing a lot of that in downtown Corpus Christi. So I'm proud of what we've done. I'm proud of the message that we provide, I think, to the community, to the business community. And they see that downtown is happening. There's a lot more here that we have right now than we did 5 years ago. The Nueces Loft is something that I help spearhead and support in downtown residential living, because that is the key, Joe, as you know, to growth, is to bring people to actually live in the downtown areas like we've seen in a lot of other cities. So that's another key catalyst that will hopefully spur more restaurants and hopefully grocery stores and other amenities that you would find in other neighborhoods, bring them to the downtown area so that the people living here don't have to go far to enjoy all those things that they need for life. So that's something that I've always supported, and something that we've been putting a part of, like I said, on the council for this past 6 years that I've been on there. Definitely been pro downtown growth, but then you got to balance that with the neighborhoods and all their needs as well.
Well, and we're going to take a break, and when we come back, you're listening to John Marez, your city councilman, District 2, and we were talking about downtown. We're going to pick up with that when we come back, but we're also going to talk about politics and the upcoming election when we come back.
Have you been arrested or are potentially facing criminal charges? You need a trial attorney who is well-versed in the courtroom. Joe Flores has handled hundreds of criminal cases and many of them to trial. Joe Flores can provide you with competent representation to protect your constitutional rights in state and federal court. Joe Flores can help if you have been arrested or facing criminal charges. The law offices of Joe Flores. Equal justice for all. The justice system for those who want to take on insurance companies or big business has become difficult in Texas. Unfair tort reform laws have closed the courthouse doors to the most vulnerable in our society, including the elderly and children. You need competent legal representation when it comes to serious accidents and if you have suffered harm from a drug product or medical device. Joe Flores can help. Backed by 20 years as a medical professional and as a trial lawyer, Joe Flores can evaluate your claim. The law offices of Joe Flores. Equal justice for all.